You're watching something stupid with a friend, not even that funny, just stupid, and at some point you're laughing so hard you can't breathe properly, and your eyes are full of tears. And it's not because anything's wrong, but because something was funny enough to short-circuit your whole face. That's a strange way for a body to react to a joke if you actually stop and think about it. Crying is supposed to mean something's wrong. And yet here you are, having one of the better moments of your week doing the exact thing your body does at a funeral. Here's the part almost nobody questions. Every mammal on the planet makes tears. Dogs, horses, lions, all of them. But only one species cries because something's funny or sad or just too much to hold. Tears exist to do one boring job. Keep the eyeball wet. So how did one species turn basic eye maintenance into something it does at weddings, breakups, and the end of a movie that definitely shouldn't have gotten to you? Before that gets answered, you need to know what tears were doing before any of this. They're older than crying itself. For millions of years, their entire job was stopping the eye from drying out and getting damaged. Nothing emotional about it. So emotional crying didn't invent tears. It hijacked them the same way someone might turn a kitchen sink into a fountain. The plumbing was already there. Somebody just found a new use for it. Which raises the actual question. If tears already had a job, why pull them into emotional life at all? Let's start with mice. In 2020, researchers in Italy found that female mouse tears contain chemicals that calm down aggressive males. Not symbolism, but chemistry. Male mice exposed to the tear fluid became noticeably less aggressive, and researchers traced the effect to specific molecules in the fluid itself. Something similar has been observed in mole rats, where a weaker animal appears to use another animal's tears to calm a more dominant one down. So tears aren't just lubricant. They're messages, and apparently humans didn't invent that idea either. In 2023, researchers in Israel had men sniff women's emotional tears. The tears had no smell at all. None. And the men still became measurably calmer, with reduced aggression and brain scans showing less activity in regions linked to aggression. The researchers argued the effect may be driven by the same kind of chemical signaling already seen in mice. Your nose isn't picking up on anything. Your brain apparently still is. So human tears probably aren't some unique evolutionary invention. They might just be a newer version of a very old animal trick, which means the real mystery isn't whether other animals use tears as signals. They clearly might. The mystery is why humans are the only ones who let everyone watch it happen. In 2022, researchers in Japan looked at dogs. They found dogs produced more tear fluid when reunited with their owner than with a stranger. Give the dogs oxytocin, the so-called bonding hormone, and the same thing happened again. That's genuinely strange. It's also nowhere near crying. The study only covered about 20 dogs, and nothing ever rolled down anyone's face. So here's the catch. If a dog's tear production can shift with emotion, why has practically nobody ever actually seen an animal cry? Back in 1985, researchers asked the people most likely to have witnessed it. Vets, zookeepers, people who spend entire careers around animals. Almost none of them had. Now you've got two things sitting side by side. Emotion seems able to change tear production in some mammals, and the people most likely to witness emotional crying in animals almost never have. The fluid shifts, just never becomes visible enough to call it crying, which flips the whole question. Humans may not be unique because our tears respond to emotion. Other mammals seem capable of something similar. We're unique because we let the tears show. And that costs something real. Cry hard enough to blur your vision, and you're suddenly worse at spotting danger, right when you're most exposed. Evolution tends to get rid of things like that, unless the cost is the entire point. One researcher in Israel built his whole theory around exactly that idea. Blurring your own vision isn't a glitch in the system. It's the signal itself. You're showing the people around you that you've voluntarily made yourself worse at noticing a threat, and that's not something you'd risk if survival were all that mattered. The cost is what makes people believe it. A psychologist who wasn't involved in the research called it one of the most original explanations anyone's offered for why humans cry at all. And once tears work that way, they start changing how people treat you. Eye tracking studies show people look longer at a tear streak than a dry face, and rate the crying person as more sincere. Some studies even suggest tears make people judge someone who's done something wrong a little less harshly, though it's not an automatic switch. A study spanning several countries and around 10,000 people found the idea that tears automatically signal honesty was much weaker than expected. It depended heavily on who was crying and why. So tears aren't magic. They're persuasive. Just not guaranteed. Even we don't arrive doing any of this. Babies cry loudly from the moment they're born, but visible tears don't show up until weeks later. The alarm comes first. The signal comes later. Maybe that's been the story all along. Crying and tears were never really one behavior. One gets attention, the other earns belief. Humans didn't invent tears. Nature had already done that millions of years earlier. What humans seem to have done is turn them into something else entirely. A drop of salt water. That can say things words never quite manage to.